All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Very happy to have you all here for the first event of the first ever Central Wisconsin Book Festival. Yes. All right. Indeed. It's been months of planning, and it's kind of crazy that it's actually happening. And there's been a lot of people involved in the planning of it, and a lot of people supporting it. So we are thankful for all of them. Julie Bunchek from the Lecture in Fine Arts series, Jill Stukenberg, the folks over at Yankee Bookstore, Todd Yankee over at Barnes & Noble, no relation. They've all been instrumental in helping this get off the ground and helping us publicize and getting books in stock and all sorts of stuff. It's really been a community effort because we want this to be a community festival, and we hope to continue it next year and many years beyond as well. So as I mentioned, obviously tonight is the kickoff event, our fact or fiction storytelling. We have 9 more events tomorrow throughout the day. 7 of those events will be at the library in Wausau, and 2 of them will be over at Yankee Bookstore. If you haven't seen the website, grab a flyer on your way out. We have a schedule of all of the events and locations and times. We've tried to put together a good mix of authors and other experts, and we hope we've succeeded in that. We have a former governor, a comic artist whose work is being made into a movie, among others, and we'll be back here about 24 hours from now, actually, for our headlining event with poet Mai Der Vang, whose book Afterland, her debut book of poetry, not only did it win the Walt Whitman Award for poetry, we just found out a few weeks ago that it's been longlisted for a National Book Award in poetry. So we're really looking forward to having her here as well. Before we get underway, and I'll introduce Charles, just some thanks for all of our support. Funding for these programs has come from the Marathon County Public Library Foundation, the Friends of the Marathon County Public Library, the UW Lecture in Fine Arts series, and our other sponsors, Yankee Bookstore also, and our other support provided by Wisconsin Public Radio. We're really thankful to have their support in getting the word out about this as well, and of course, Barnes & Noble. So we're gonna have some fun tonight. We've got an interesting mix of stories and an interesting, to say the least, host. Charles Munroe-Kane, our MC for the evening, is a producer for the nationally syndicated radio program To the Best of Our Knowledge. That's this man right here, hiding in the wings. And he is the author of the 2016 memoir, Lithium Jesus. Prior to his work on public radio, he made pottery in Costa Rica, started a record label in Amsterdam and an internet cafe in Prague, ran a circus, and many other odd, in all meanings of the word, jobs. So we are very happy to have him here. So without further ado, please welcome Charles Munroe-Kane.
Thank you, sir. Hi, everybody. How are you? Wow, you guys are spread out. Does anybody want to move forward? You guys want to condense yourselves? No? You guys in the back want to move forward? You can't go ahead. It's called love. Intimacy. No, it is. It might be more fun for you. You also don't have to. But if you don't move, then I know who you are. So I can see where you are. Thank you, Chad. Where'd Chad go? He's gone. He had cool shoes on. I was kind of coveting his shoes, wondering what size he wears. You think? You can't hear him. I'll steal his stuff. So anyway, like he said, I'm Charles Munroe-Kane. I'm also working at Wisconsin Public Radio, so I think we're all family, right? Yay. And at Wisconsin Public Radio, I work for the show To the Best of Our Knowledge, which is a national program. And we deal in interviews, mostly. We interview all sorts of people. That's what To the Best of Our Knowledge does, and I get the honor of interviewing people. And even if it's a physicist, or if it's a cosmologist, or a poet, or a writer, it isn't really an interview unless there's a story. So when I'm interviewing one of you, okay, and I'm the guy doing the interview, what I'm looking for is story. I'm trying to draw a story out of you so that the millions of people across the country are going to hear it, can relate to you. Because 15 billion light years away doesn't have any meaning. But when I interviewed Neil deGrasse Tyson recently, he can bring it back into who you are, right, and who he is, and all in story. Because we all relate to story, right? we're still the guy in the cave, right? With the fire who's scared and is talking and telling a story around the campfire. That's all this. It's been said. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Tolstoy. I'm afraid to say that because I think it might not be Tolstoy. Who said there's only two kinds of stories, right? There's only two kinds of story, right? It wasn't Tolstoy. Maybe someone else knows. Who was it? No, sorry. It's okay. You can make. It's okay. We're gonna make noises. It's totally fine. I won't embarrass you. A man, basically someone you don't know, a mystery man comes to town, or a man goes on a journey. That's it. Those are your story. It was Tolstoy, I just remember. And so that's it. Those are your two stories. It's not that complicated. We all tell stories. My grandmother told stories while we washed dishes, and that's what she would do. If she would do the dishes after, when I was raised by my grandmother. If you told her a story, so you tell her a story about your day and tell stories. We tell stories to entertain, right? We tell stories to seduce, right? You don't seduce someone just with your looks. If I did, I'd still be a virgin. It's all about stories. People tell bar stories, tell stories, everything. So tonight we're going to hear a bunch of different stories. Before we bring up the first person, I also want to mention that each one of us has a story. That's the capital S story, right? We have a story. We also have inside of it multiple small s stories, right? And the problem is we all think we're not the people who can tell them, right? We're afraid to tell our stories. I'm stupid, I'm boring, I live in Wausau, I don't have anything to say. But it's not true. You do have something to say. Because you may think how you live in Wausau is boring, but I bet you that 25-year-old hipster in New York doesn't think you're boring. Because I was telling there's some students we were hanging out with earlier today, go to the New York Times website and search the word supper club. And look how many stories the New York Times has run in the last 2 years on supper clubs in Wisconsin and Minnesota. They find us romantic. We're fascinating to them. So you're not, it's the context in which your story is, right? You understand what I'm saying? Like, you have the stories. And for people who love you, right? The grandkids, your grandparents, your lover, your friend, they want to hear your story. Please keep that in mind. There's no joke there. We want to hear your story. And as you age and move on, keep in mind that if you have not shared your story, then it is gone. And do not let that happen. Do not let that happen. Tell the kids your recipes. Tell them how you met Grandpa. Tell them about that kiss who wasn't Grandpa. Tell them the story. Tell them about the war. Tell them the story. So anyway, that was my little intro. I think story is the most important thing that we do as humans. I'm not just saying that because I'm doing a storytelling thing here. I think it's the most important thing we do. And do not underestimate its power, right? I don't know where your political leanings lie, but there's a story happening right now, right? Is that story true or not? I'm not going to totally get into that, but you're being fed and given a story. And sometimes you're given a different story. There's propaganda, there's all those things, but still all part of a story. So keep in mind that it's all that's happening around you. Last thing I'll share before we bring up the first person. Karen, are you ready? I'm going to bring Karen up first. Where's Karen? Well, that was easy. Karen's right there. That's interesting. I have Karen's pen. Karen, have your... Nope, I have Karen's pen, so you know Karen's ready. She gave her pen up. I like to share this sometimes when I talk about journalism with students in different parts of the country, is there's this narrative arc that exists, right? We know it. We know it intimately, right? This is Tim, okay? Tim falls in love with Becky. That's the start of the narrative arc of the story. They're moving up the arc. A lot of good stuff here, picnics and stuff. Becky gets pregnant. She has Billy, little Billy. Boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. We're not to the tip of the narrative arc yet, but we're coming there. There's little Billy. Tim's kind of having a hard time with the pressure here, little Billy. He loses his job down at the plant, and he starts to drink. And he starts to drink, and one night, top of the narrative arc, he hits Becky. Becky ain't putting up with that shit. She kicks him out. He starts to go down the arc, right? Things get bad, right? Then what happens down here? Story started here. He hits the bottom, rock bottom. He hits the bottom of the ark. What happens at the bottom of the ark? Well, what happens at the bottom of the ark in the typical story you hear is that he goes to AA, he finds God, whatever, and he goes back up. And how does the story end? You know, the happy ending. We've seen it a million times in Hollywood, right? He ends there, and he's now, little Timmy's, little Timmy's a Little League coach. And that's how the story ends. That's the Steven Spielberg story. It's a lie. Right? Right? You've had Tims in your life, right? I have. He doesn't always find redemption at the bottom of the thing, and he doesn't always come back, and he isn't your kid's coach. Sometimes he is, but most of the time he's not. Sometimes it takes him 10 times and dips. That convenient narrative arc is what's holding us back to sharing our story, because we think that's how our story should be. And if my arc doesn't fit into that story, then somehow my story doesn't ring true. And that's bullshit. Do not let people tell you how your narrative arc should be. Some arcs are round. You know what I mean? It's still an arc. So I just wanted to say that to keep in mind tonight, that we don't need to fall into the trap of Steven Spielberg tonight, okay? If you want to watch Steven Spielberg, you wouldn't be here. You'd be home on Netflix watching a stupid Steven Spielberg film. Instead, you're here to kind of maybe break out a little bit and maybe hear some different arcs. How's that for an intro, Karen? You liked it? Okay, Karen, come up here. Oh, she's going to go that way. And these stairs are pretty steep, so I think people will go around. And I better fold what I said about Karen. Put that away here. I don't want her to see it. That's going to be the storytelling one. Karen, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure.
And then I'm going to walk away.
All right. My name is Karen Powers, and I've been in government in some form or another for 32 years. So you can believe me that I can look you in the eye and tell you something that probably might not be true. This story is called The Angel of Whoop-Ass. And it was a beautiful summer night. I was supervising the Mayor's Youth Action Council while they had a grill fest in one of our county parks. There were 300 kids there, and they were all ages, but mostly teenagers and young adults. They had a BMX stunt contest in the skateboard park, and then they also had skateboard tricks. And then they scheduled 5 bands in one of the shelters. So we had a lot going on, and it was going on very successfully. I was very pleased. I was handing out Band-Aids and ice packs because gravity and physics never take a holiday. And I was helping the kids learn about planned spontaneity. I put up a volleyball net and croquet court and 3 frisbees on the grass and just left them. Didn't have any organized schedule for it, so everything was going pretty well. And one of the bands was playing in the shelter, and I was walking between the 2 venues, and suddenly I saw 5 teenage boys smashing their skateboards into the door of the shelter. So I went over there, and well, let's just say my response might have been out of range for what their actual actions were, but I'd been up since 5:30 that morning. It was 89 degrees, and I just basically gave them my last nerve. I went off. So as I'm escorting them out of the park, and they're calling to question my judgment, my sexuality, my gender, suddenly a beautiful blonde, scantily clad young lady steps out of the crowd, and she's tattooed in all the wrong and right places. And she walks up to the boys and says, "Shut the fuck up, you little pricks. It's about showing the woman some respect. So shut the fuck up and get out of the park." "Thank you," I said. It was wholly inadequate for her passionate protection of me, but it was all I had. The rest of the night, the rest of the walk out of the park, I don't know what the kids said. It didn't stick in my memory. But yea, though I walked in the valley of trash talk, I would fear no evil, because I had been visited by the angel of whoop-ass. Thank you.
Wow, the angel of whoop-ass. So we have a little thing we're going to do, if you can stay here for 1 minute, if you don't mind. We're doing this now, right, for each one? Understood? Okay, so what we're going to do, you maybe heard this already, but we're trying to figure out tonight if things are fact or fiction. So we're going to pass out some note cards right now. No? Yes? No. Oh, clap-o-meter. No, everybody has note cards. Oh, at the end, where there are no cards in, I apologize. So what we're going to do, and you can help me judge here if the people think. So what I need you to do is we're going to clap first for fact, always, all night. So truth will be first. And then second will be not truth. And we're just going to clap. Don't clap for the other one if you're going to clap for the first one. You guys with me? These young people were out early. They were drinking heavily, so I'm afraid they're going to get a thing. So first, shh, no, shh. Okay, we're going to clap for, oh, yes. Yes, okay, she's going to be the meter. That's excellent. That's awesome. She's the meter. It starts to work out and you get spontaneous. First, do you think this story was true? I've never done this before. It's great. I like the thing. And then the next question is, do you think the whoop-ass story was not true? Well, you guys went longer. Did you know that? You weren't louder. You lose, by the way. But you went longer. I don't know what that means. So I would say that they have decided that this story is true. And I want to make sure, because I know we changed a lot of things. I really apologize for other people in charge. Do we do this now, or do we wait till the end? Now? Okay. So the question to you, of course, is very simple. Is the story true or false?
I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you. And it was true.
Thank you very much. Oh, I like that. That was great. You know, you think about some of the details in there that you'll just remember them, right? So what color was the woman's hair? Right. Where did she have tattoos? Right and the wrong places. That's a good line, actually, by the way. Whoop ass. Okay. I haven't heard that in a long time. My grandmother used to say that. I used to get an ass whooping. Well, we're gonna move forward quickly here. I'm gonna go with. I get to pick who's next. I don't even know who these people are, so it's really exciting who I can pick next. But I think I'm gonna pick one of the professors types here that I hung out with. So why don't you come on up here? Are you doing a story? Huh? No. We're gonna Jerry. You're next, but don't give it away. You're next. I just gave it away. Come on up. Jill, we're gonna come on up, Jill. Now, Jill Stuckenberg is a professor of physics, right? Physics at the University of Wisconsin, Superior, who came down for this event. Her doppelganger has been teaching creative writing here. Are you getting double paid, Jill, for your professorship there?
Yes,
in there?
yes.
Jill is very smart.
It's part of a new program. I'm just going to do both jobs for the same.
No, but you're
thing.
officially a journalism professor, a communications professor,
English.
creative writing?
English and creative writing.
You know what Garrison Keillor said about English majors? He said it's a major created so people could get work in public radio. So
Good.
seriously, everyone I work with is an English major at Wisconsin Public Radio. A very well-read group of people. So I'm going to let you tell your story. Now remember, we're now trying to decide if this is true or not. A professional here is going to try to do some wool pulling. So pay attention.
I think I traveled through time. Hang with me here. So I guess, as Charles just said, some of you know that my name is Jill. I teach English here. I grew up in Wisconsin, if you didn't know that about me, north of Green Bay, but I lived out of state for a while, and I lived in Portland, Oregon, just before I came here. And this is something I don't tell people often because I know, we're all supposed to say we love it here in Wausau, and all of us who grew up here were glad that we came back. But I was kind of depressed when we left Portland and came here. And my husband and I left. At the time, we weren't married, because when we lived in Portland, it was okay to be not married. That was okay, but as soon as we came here, we soon felt shunned, so we put a ring on it, And we settled into our life. I mean, things were good, like I was able to afford a house here, but part of me always felt like maybe I left a place where things were happening, right? Like where life was going on or something, right? Why did I leave? So that's the backstory, just to know. The other part is, I guess, so I'm a writer, and this meant that when my mother's cousin was cleaning out her attic and found a box of old dirty letters, they came to me, right? Whenever anyone in the family doesn't want to throw anything away, they say, send it to Jill, maybe she'll write about it someday. So then I get them in my attic. So I have this box of letters that I was reading through this summer. And apparently I had a great-great-aunt Sarah who left behind a diary. And it's a diary, and she also left behind this really cool old brown satchel that she, I imagine, carried the diary around with, right? And she went out to Oregon on the Oregon Trail. Like, that's how much of a great-great-aunt she is. She got to go out in a covered wagon, travel through the wilderness, go out west. So all summer I've been reading this diary that Aunt Sarah left behind. And it got so that I could picture her. You know, I could see her, I could see the color of her hair. She wrote about her husband, who was a worrywart, just like my husband is. There was this other woman on the trip, Mrs. Martin, who was always on her case about stuff, like if she didn't wash out the pots well enough, or if she didn't trim the candle wicks down low enough so that they wouldn't, I don't know, have a big flame and make the tent catch on fire or something like this. I could picture everything about her. I could see how hot and thirsty she was on the Oregon Trail when she would be riding in this sort of jiggly covered wagon, and she would try to drink, but the water would just spill down the front of her dress. And I could see her. I felt like I knew her. And then I got to a page of the diary, and it was blank, and there was nothing. And I was surprised, because I thought I had flipped through the diary. But it was blank, and then there was nothing. So I called my mother's cousin up and said, what's the story with Sarah? How come the diary ends? And she said, oh, that was the fire. They were all killed, all of them, in that group she was with. I mean, we don't even know how we got the letters, but they died in a fire. And I was kind of devastated. I mean, this woman, this ancestor I'd never met, was gone. And so this summer, some friends have always been kind of nagging me to come back to Portland. So this summer I went, bought a plane ticket. It was just a couple weeks before the semester was going to start. I thought I didn't have time, but I thought, okay, I'll do it. Went out to Portland, hung out in all the places, right? Like the music venues, the coffee shops, Powell's Books, right? Saw lots of people. I had the satchel with me because it was so cool. People in Portland love the satchel. It was amazing. Everyone wanted to know where they could get it. Said, you got to have a great Aunt Sarah, right? And then I asked my friends, could we go hiking in the gorge? And they said, yes, yeah, let's go. And this was in August, by the way. So we were lucky because, as you know, you can't hike in the gorge much anymore, right? Or not for a very long time. The Columbia Gorge, there's been terrible fires, right? Wildfires. So we were hiking in the gorge, and I had this camera, and I had the diary and the satchel with me, and I was trying to connect with my great Aunt Sarah a little bit, because they had gotten just about that far, like to eastern Oregon and the gorge. And I must have been thinking about all this too much because I got lost. Have you ever been lost in the woods? Like our woods here, even in Wisconsin? Just even for a moment turned around, it's terrifying. The trees were kind of swimmy, right? I knew that I should stop moving because that's what you should do when you're lost in the woods, but I kept moving, and I kept getting deeper, and I felt like I finally had to take everything, set everything down, the camera down, the bag down, the satchel down, the letters, and just try to stand still. And I guess I can say this because I just got tenure. I smoked a tiny bit of a joint that I had in my pocket because I was trying to chill out and like maybe get my bearings. And I felt like the woods looked different. Like it looked like a different kind of woods, a different time. The woods of a different time. And I said, all right. And I just, flicked away the joint. I was like, I'm just going to walk. And I did find my friends. I had lost everything. I lost my camera. I lost the satchel. I lost the diary. But I found my friends again on the trail. And they said, oh, what happened? I said, I don't know. Something really weird. Let's go home. And of course, then later when I got home and when I flew back to Wausau, I read about the fires in the gorge. All of my friends who live there in Portland now, my friends who stayed and work in the coffee shops with their master's degrees, they can't go hiking anymore in the gorge. It's going to be generations, they say, until anyone can hike in the gorge again, until any of that grows back. The fires were just that devastating. But I think, how do any of us travel anywhere? How do any of us get to the places where we're going to be?
Wow, that was great. Thank you very much. So I have so many things that I ask you, but we can't do that right now. Let's first find out if we think our professor friend's here's story is true or not. Didn't seem true. I don't think she's ever been to Oregon. I don't know. We'll find out. Her Aunt Sarah, I don't buy it. I don't know. Let's find out. So let's see. How many? Okay, we'll start with truth. How many people think that story was true? I think I have to do the meter thing, I think. Yeah, everybody has to do the meter thing now. How many people think the story was true? Oh, hope I didn't influence that. I want to ask the second question, but I think I know the answer. How many people think the story is false? Oh, interesting. All right.
Thank you.
No. Is the story true?
It is false. Professors don't do drugs.
Oh, come on. It's really not true at all?
No, it's not true.
Didn't it feel it wasn't crazily exaggerated though. I mean, didn't it feel real though, in a sense? And
Thank you.
oh, there you go. Look at that.
Yeah, cool.
But no, what? Sorry. We're not in a hurry, right? You guys have a Steven Spielberg film to watch? You know? What? Oh, critique.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
I needed a few more greats. Yeah, I don't have an Aunt Sarah at all.
Yeah.
No family members have ever been on the Oregon Trail.
I can ask you. Do you mind if I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
And one of the things I think we'll get at tonight, and maybe this is a little too deep, but why not, right? There's truth, right? Like she doesn't have an Aunt Sarah, and that didn't happen. That's fine. That's truth. She's a good writer, so she added things that like the fire, realistic, so we could think it might be true. And then there's truth, right? Capital T truth versus small t truth, right? Small t, it was not true. Was that, have you had in your life recently, or maybe you never even lived in Oregon, I don't know, but do you have something in your life where you had that kind of transformation, that's fire would be the symbol of it? Because, you know what I mean, there's a bigger truth out there maybe sometimes.
Sure. I mean, I've given birth. I think that's like fire, right? And I've changed, my whole life has changed since I did live in Portland. That's part true. And it's true that I was scared when I came from Portland back to Wisconsin, right? I wanted to come back, but I was a little scared, like what was I giving up? And I think I did feel that part is true.
A trial by fire, maybe?
That regret,
Yeah.
right? But now my life is very different. Yeah.
So I just think it's interesting when we do this thing tonight as we go on and we do truth and not truth, to think that sometimes the not truth is the greater truth at times, right? There's a reason for fiction, right?
Right.
There's a reason for
right.
fiction. Well, thank you very much. It's an excellent story.
Thanks, Charles.
Jerry, how are you? Oh, he's great. He's got a walking stick. Or maybe it's a storytelling stick. He's got the talking stick. Do you guys ever have talking stick in your life? I used to live in a commune. Anybody else live in a commune? That's true. Jeez, don't live in a commune. People will eat off your dishes. And we always had the talking stick. I quit because I could not handle the talking stick. Jerry, could you tell us who you are, and then we'll get ready for the story. Who are you, Jerry?
My name is Jerry Buer. I moved to Wausau almost 15 years ago. I lived all over the country, but kind of Midwesterner. Good share of my life, I taught sociology at the college and university level. Commented on my stick. I don't really need it. It's more of like a blanket comic strip character, but I do have a little story about it. I was down in Sarasota, Florida a few years ago, and I was walking to their library, in fact, and I'm hobbling along, and a very, very gentlemanly-looking fellow, tall, even older than I was, looked like he was maybe a retired downtown New York, Manhattan lawyer, and he stopped. He said, "Oh, what a what a beautiful stick. And I said, well, thank you. I said, I not only carved it myself, but I grew it myself. I had a little tree farm. And I said, I stripped the bark, stained it, everything like that. And I said, I use it mainly to fight off young women. And he said, aha, I was wondering why it looks so new and unused. So I thought I was pretty cute.
He set you up, man.
He got me.
He set you up, dude. Well, why don't you share your story with us, and then we'll see if it's true or not when you're
Okay.
done.
Like a lot of other people, I have a bucket list. Things I want to do, see, hear before I cross the Lonesome Valley. I also have another list quite like that, but it's things that I don't want to do. Actually, the name of that list rhymes with bucket list. It's my chuck-it list. I got you on that one, didn't I? On that list of things that I don't want to do is somewhat of a cultural snob. I never want to see a NASCAR race. I never want to go to Disney World. I never want to go to the Mall of America. There's several items there. On my bucket list, though, for many years was a visit to New Orleans. And actually, I did that. I think maybe, give me a chance here, I can demonstrate that. No, I can't. Oh, I can. Arlo, right? So what I did is I did it the way one should do in the Midwest. Shut up, Arlo. I silenced him. What I did is I made my way to Chicago, and I hopped on the city of New Orleans. To me, that was the one way to go. And I did not have a lot of time to prepare for that trip. So I had bought a farmer's guide and spent the evening, I think we left about 7 at night, and I spent the evening in the club car studying the guide and making up a mini bucket list of things I wanted to see in New Orleans. Of course, there's Bourbon Street. I'm not a party guy, but you couldn't come back to the Midwest and people ask what you did, and you can tell them, oh, I never made it to Bourbon Street. So I was going to go there. I wanted to see the above-ground cemeteries. I wanted to go, oddly enough, to the fairgrounds racetrack. I had two Midwest buddies who were big into horse racing. One college friend actually owned some racehorses. You have to go to the fairgrounds racetrack. City Park, they have a wonderful zoo, and I wanted to go to their then new aquarium. I didn't mention this was in about the year 2000. And I wanted to go to, according to Farmer's recommendation, the Camellia Grill, and taste their pecan pancakes. They highly recommended those. So at any rate, we got in the afternoon the next day on Wednesday. I rested up, planned my schedule for the next couple of days. And on Thursday morning, I caught the bus and headed out to the city park. And I knew on the way there, I would pass the fairgrounds and then I would backtrack. Well, it turns out I passed the fairgrounds, and it turns out between there and the city park, wouldn't you know it, here was one of their above-ground cemeteries, St. Louis number 3. So I thought, instead of two birds with one stone that day, 3 birds, I would backtrack from the park, go to the cemetery. I could check that off my list and then go to the races. And I did just that. When I approached the cemetery, I walked maybe a mile and a half. I saw this big white structure. It turns out as I got close, it was a beautiful mausoleum. It was a cubicle mausoleum, probably 16, 18 feet on one side in height. And it was the burial place solely of Jesuits, from monsignors to regular priests and teachers. And I looked at the names, and not surprisingly, a good many of the names were French, right? We're down in heavily Catholic country and French countries. There were Irish names, there were some German names, and then there was one name that was just completely out of context. Now, I grew up on a farm in Wisconsin on the edge of a Norwegian-American community, and I attended college over in Iowa in Decorah, which has the largest Norwegian-American museum in the country, and my mother was Scandinavian, half Norwegian, half Danish, so there was a name that just stood out. It said Carl M. Peterson, 1938 to 1995. Carl Peterson buried down in New Orleans, one thing, but the other thing was that a Norwegian name like that, it was out of context, and it made me wonder, how did a guy like this ever end up Catholic? And if he was going to be Catholic, how did he ever end up as a Jesuit? It just seemed kind of weird. And the dates were interesting because we shared the same birth year, and I thought, this guy only lived till his kind of mid to late 50s. I wondered what happened to him. So I went on my way, did the racetrack, and that night I still thought about that incident with this Norwegian stuck down there with the French, German, and Irish folk. The next morning, I decided to do the Camellia Cafe right away and do the pancakes. So I go out there, I get there at 8:30 in the morning, and it turns out they aren't open. It's the Big Easy, you know, and I thought they serve breakfast. They don't open till 9 o'clock. So I walked around the area. I'm in the garden area, that beautiful area, mansions, moss hanging trees and stuff like that. So I killed a half an hour, came back, got in line. It's 9 o'clock. There's like 15, 18 people in line. I get in the back of the line. They aren't open yet. Again, given the way they operate, they opened about 10 after 9. But one last person came in line and stood in back of me, and we struck up a conversation. He was about a 35-year-old fellow who had a health food store in Atlanta, and he had one down in New Orleans, and was down to check that one out. He said he came once or twice a month, and he said he had gone to college. He grew up in Shreveport, came to Loyola, and went there for college and a graduate degree. And he just loved the Garden District. So I said, well, if you liked it so well, how come you moved to Atlanta? And he said, well, it was actually, much of it was the crime rate. He said, when I was a student, I would walk home from the library at 9:30, 10, 11 o'clock at night without any fear whatsoever. But he said it got so really bad. And oddly enough, a week or two before, in USA Today, I read an article about how bad the murder rate had been. They had a new chief of police, and he was making some inroads, but in the early to mid-90s, it had gotten up to like 400 murders a year. I checked right before I came here. They're at about 200 now, and worried about that because it had gotten even lower. But this guy said, it was terrible. In fact, he said, I still have nightmares about what's happened, because he said, a few years ago, one of my dearest professors, a wonderful teacher, great man, he said from first grade on to graduate school, I had some good teachers, but nobody stood out like Carl Peterson. I was speechless, and he could see it. Well, I was kind of in shock, and he said, you knew him? And I said, well, no, I didn't know him, but I've known of him for about maybe, 21, 22 hours. Well, I had vowed when I came to New Orleans and made up my list, there were on my minor bucket list a couple places I was not going to go to. I wasn't going to waste my time on the Anne Rice home. You could go to the mansion, which was the source of her mystery stories, Mayfair Mansion, I believe. So it was the Mayfair Mansion ghost stories. And I'm not into parapsychology, extrasensory perception, stuff like that. I wasn't going to do that. And then the other place I definitely wasn't going to go to was the New Orleans Historic Voodoo Museum. I thought, why would anyone waste their time? After my Carl Peterson experience, next time I go to New Orleans, I can't go to the Anne Rice house. That's been sold. It's a private residence. But you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to go to the New Orleans Historic Voodoo Museum. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you.
Do the meter?
Yeah, you have to do the meter. You can use the stick if you want.
Oh, okay.
The meter stick. You might as well use it for something,
The one I
right?
fought all the women
Yeah,
off
yeah.
with?
You might as well use it for something.
It's really used.
Okay. Do people think that story about New Orleans is true? Yeah. Okay. You ready?
All right.
You reset the girl stick. Do you think it is false? Ah. So I would say the group, not by consensus, of course, would say that that story is true. Sir, is that story true?
No. No, it is true. It did happen. Would I tell a lie?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh, that was a great story. I really enjoyed that story. I love that story. I've never been to New Orleans. It's on my bucket list. I was going to share a little something with you before you go on to the next person. I'm supposed to do things in between, right? Is that what I'm supposed to do? Do things in between? Do things in between. As I mentioned earlier, I do a national radio program. And we, on occasions on To Best for Knowledge, have stories. Not essays, but actual stories. I have people in. And when we have stories on, I give them advice. You know, because you get to give people, it's fun to give people advice, right? It makes you feel important. But also, and here's the advice I give people for telling stories. So you can take it for what you want. Here's what I tell people to do. I got this advice from The Moth. Anybody know The Moth? Wow. Nobody knows The Moth. Listen, you guys do. I'm going to tell you this real quick here. The Moth is a public radio program that's also a podcast. I think it's the third or fourth most successful podcast in the country and one of the biggest public radio programs, so it's not obscure or anything. It's a storytelling show. People get 10 minutes to tell a story. Stories have to be true. There's no editing. There's no music. There's nothing fancy. It's an amazing program of raw storytelling done on a stage in front of a live audience, then put up on the radio. Here's their advice. I've made a few changes. 1, edit out loud. That means you do not write down your story, okay? So that means there's no paper, right? There's never should be paper if you're doing it out loud. Why would there be paper? It's not a written story, right? So edit out loud, either in front of a mirror, with front of your friends, but no paper. Memorize your first sentence, okay? Make it killer. It's your first sentence, dude. Make it good. Now, know where the top of your narrative arc is. Right? We know the narrative. Know where the top of your narrative arc is. Normally, it's about 60 to 75% in, I have found in my experience. Memorize the sentence that's at the top of your narrative arc. That's the powerful part, right? You know? And then she opened the door. You know, pause. So know where that is. Then memorize your last sentence. Most important piece of advice is memorize your last sentence. If you do not memorize the last sentence, you're going to meander. Nobody wants to hear your story going for another minute when you're already done, okay? So know the end of your sentence. Now, I added something to this that I share with people that The Moth doesn't do, and I'm going to give you a little example. This is the only last thing. It's the 5th part of how to tell a good story in front of other people. When I was a little kid, my mother passed away. I was raised by my grandmother, and when I was a little kid, my father lived nearby but didn't live with us, and it was my 13th birthday, and I wanted a bike. And he had insinuated that I was going to get a new bike. Not a used bike, but a new bike. We were very poor, but he insinuated to get a bike. Also, my father would come over on occasions, ask my grandmother what I had done wrong, or my brother or sister, whoever, but for me, I cared about me at the point. If we had done anything wrong, I hadn't seen him in like 2 weeks or a week, and he'd say, hey, what have we done wrong? He'd get the list, think about it, and then he'd take you to the woodshed, and you'd get beat for what you did wrong. You kind of like accumulate. I think I made him feel like that's what made him a dad. I parent my kids a little bit differently. I guilt them out. I'm disappointed in you a lot. I'm really good at the disappointed in you line. I don't think it works. Maybe I should take my kids to the woodshed. For years, I would actually, a quick aside, a lot of times musicians would be like, yeah, well, I'm woodshedding. I'm like, no. Now I realize it can be a good thing too. But he would take me out to the woodshed and I would get beat out there. Well, this day that happened to be my birthday, which I'm assuming he forgot but wasn't sure, the day I thought I could get a bike but wasn't sure, also I'd done some pretty effed up things that week, I remember, and so I wasn't sure what was happening, and my grandmother was a very clever woman, and I quite liked her. You weren't always sure if she was telling him everything, and she had some grace in her, So he leaves, and he says, let's go. He was one of those stoic men, a few words, and we walked to the woodshed. And I remember thinking, am I going to get the bike or am I going to get my ass whooped? Now, there's similar things in a circle stuff, right? Like if you think about it sometimes, like anarchy and libertarianism is kind of the same thing, really. There's little lines separating them, the circle of things. So you're not really sure. So you're excited and you're nervous and what's happening. And he opens up the woodshed. And I remember thinking, this is the moment, right? Because obviously I really wanted the goddamn bike, right? And I didn't really want the ass whooping. But also the intimacy of when my father came was always associated with the ass whooping. So he opens up the garage door, he opens up the woodshed door, and there was a bike. So that's how I got my new bike. The reason I tell you that story, which by the way isn't true, I just made it up right now. The reason I tell you that story, it's pretty good, for a made up story? Not bad, huh? You feel bad for me, didn't you? He was great, by the way, still alive. He was a nice guy. That doesn't make me a dick, does it? Are you mad? Don't be mad at me, are they? It's a fact or fiction thing. The reason I tell you that, did you notice how I paused when I told the story? Did you notice the pause? You can go ahead, guys. It's like, okay. I paused 3 times. I paused because I didn't know what I was going to say next. But you got really quiet, didn't you? Because that shit got deep, right? So, number 5 advice after editing out loud, memorizing your first sentence, know the top of your narrative arc, memorize that sentence, and memorize your last sentence. If you get stuck, pause. People think you're deep. That's my advice in storytelling. Thank you very much. All right. I didn't think that was a dark story. I'm sorry, I was a little dark. I should have told a different story, but that was it. I was thinking about my kid just got a bike, so that's how you. Who's next? Who's next? You're next. That's right. I just said you're next. Come on up, man. What are you doing? His knees shaking up, and let the poor guy come on up here. Oh, you're taking the stair. Hold on there. Don't fall. Nobody signed a waiver. Not to get the school in trouble. So what's your name again? James. Like the guy from the Bible. Wasn't that Jesus' brother? I don't know. Somebody up here must believe in Jesus. Isn't James Jesus' brother? Yeah, I got a thumbs up. Look at that. 2 years of seminary, and I can remember Jesus' brother's name. Oh, that was a little Serbic too. I'm sorry. No, that's not true. I didn't go to seminary. You ready for a story? Are you nervous?
I am.
You are nervous. Let me say something to you. I'm going to say something to you because I was watching your knee down there. That's why I want to bring you up. First, they came here on purpose.
Yeah.
So they want to hear a story. So it's no stress. It's not like you're on the subway and you're doing it for money, right? Do you have a job? Do you have a job?
I do.
You do have a job? You doing okay? Paying the rent?
Yeah.
Buy food when you need, get French fries if you need them? Okay. So it's not like really a big deal at all. Do you feel like you need that piece of paper?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, because I'm going to tell you something, then I'm going to walk off. You can choose to put it down here if you're not. That paper is going to make you more nervous in your hand than out of your hand, in my humble opinion. Because I'm excited to hear your story. I love people's stories. So I say, everybody take a breath. I'll take a breath. They need to be nervous, because if you do a really bad job, they have to sit through it. So you have nothing to worry about, dude. You're fine. You know what I mean? So go ahead and tell your story. It'll be all good, man.
Okay, I'm going to keep it. Because I'm not usually like up in front of people, so.
Okay, you ready? What do you do for a living?
I'm a pizza delivery driver.
Sweet! I love pizza delivery driver guys. Useful work, you know?
Thank you.
I mean, what does a sociology professor do? I don't even know, but I know what you do. So that's good. All right, go ahead, let's hear your story, all right?
Come with me now, I said. The small, disheveled group bunched closer together as they followed. Everyone was paranoid, their heads on swivels, as, you know, they didn't want to be attacked from behind. As we walked, there was a building with a spray-painted message on it, and it said, "The days are numbered." From behind me, there was a guy who cried out. Nah, I said, "Shh! But they're going to kill us." "No, they're not. You're seeing imaginary threats. So shut up and keep walking." So we keep walking, and we come across another building with a spray-painted message. This one says, "O Lord, wake the dead." And the same guy, he cries out, he sobs. I just roll my eyes and keep walking. So we keep walking, and finally, I see where we're going. And I just cannot wait to see Jericho. So we get to the door, and I knock, and a slit opens in the door to reveal a pair of piercing blue eyes. And the voice from the other side of the door says, "What was the last straw?" And I said, "I got lost in the supermarket." And so the slit closes, the door opens, and we all walk in. The guy says, "What took you so long?" And I said, "I'm not at fault here. Do you see these people?" Well, we walk in. The guy closes the door. And I say, "Where's Jericho?" And the guy says, "Well, he's in the meeting room." And I start walking towards the door, and I'm like, "Show these people around." So I get into the room, and Jericho's face lights up so much, and he hugs me, and his kiss just, it says that he didn't think that he was ever going to see me again. And he says, "What were you thinking? What if you hadn't made it?" And I said, "What if? What? Please. I told you that without you, I was nothing. There was never a chance that I wasn't going to make it." The commander made a noise, so we turned and looked at him. And he says, "So what's the news?" So I said, "Well, I found a weakness in the frog's armor. And it just seems like it was easy for them to forget because it's so small." So then he says, Well, just hold off on that until the rest of us get here. But between the three of us, one of us is going to have to be the killer, because I don't think anyone else can do it. Thank you. What?
Thanks. Oh, yeah. That was weird. I like that. That's cool, man.
I told you I would need the paper.
Yeah, you did. You needed the paper. That was weird. I liked it. I just think drugs. That's pretty much what I was thinking. And then there's probably a metaphor in there that would probably blow my mind. We'll talk about it later. Let's see. Do we think... What's the title of that story?
Frogs.
Frogs?
Frogs.
That's cool. That was interesting. Do we think that story was true? I think that says more about them than you, dude. Really? We're going to all talk later, the three of you. Do we think that story is false? I'm just gonna say, just for my own sake at this moment, I really hope the story is true. I'm gonna make a little prayer to my atheist God right now and say, please, let it take. So is that story true or false?
It is false.
Damn it. Thank you very much. That was great. You're coming up pretty soon. Look, Chad's nervous because he has a story. He's super nervous. I'm actually not having him go next on purpose. You know? And that's pretty mean, huh? It's like my dad beating me when I was... Oh, wait, whoops. Actually, if you don't mind, do you mind if I have a story? Can I tell a story? Is my okay? I'm going to switch the microphone. Oh, it is intimidating over here without the thing to hold on to. Oh, my God. All right. This story starts at puberty. Ooh, it's going to be one of those stories. Good. And move that down here a little bit. And what happened when I was a kid, when I just started going through puberty, something very strange happened to me, other than the obvious things that were also strange, is I started to hear voices in my head. And as you can imagine, no matter what age you are, it's a very disconcerting thing to hear. And I grew up in a very poor, rural family in Ohio, and I didn't really know what to do with it, and I certainly knew not to tell anybody. But I was confused, and I ended up, and I grew up not as a Christian. My family was just, whatever. And I went to a local evangelical church to a summer camp for a week, summer camp. There was a girl I liked. Her name was Michelle. She was pretty. I liked her very much. And I was hoping, as hope springs eternal when you're 13. And I went to the summer camp, and on the first night of the summer camp, there was a tent revival. Who's been to a tent revival? Can I hear an amen? I got you on that one, didn't I? Hear an amen? Wow. You guys all listen to public radio, don't you? Atheists. Two people have been to a tent revival. Ah, come on. Maybe he exists. Don't say no. Anyway, I'm at this tent revival, and I got voices in my head, and I'm kind of having a hard time. I get to the tent revival. I have no idea what's going on. I understand nothing. There, I'm experiencing this kind of bizarre thing, right? There'd been like a full court press on me for days to the other kids in the camp, right? I'm like the goal, right? Gotta save this kid, Do you believe in Jesus? Ever thought about Jesus, your personal Lord and Savior? I'm like, what the hell? It was like full court press. I'm like, oh, I haven't, but maybe I should. I don't know. It was like very weird. I hadn't really considered it, actually. I just wanted to kiss Michelle, which was not gonna happen. I figured that out pretty quickly. That's moving. It's nervous. And so that night, I'm going to this tent revival service. It was all bizarre, whatever. And near the end, as things were heating up, people started to speak in tongues. Now, glossolalia is a trip, even if you believe it or don't believe it. Just is. It's a trip. It's interesting, actually. I don't know what the hell. I had never even heard of it. People were speaking in tongues. However, the tongues sounded familiar. And I said to myself, this sounds like the voices in my head. This sounds exactly like the voices in my head. See, for those of you, if anybody out here, you can give me an amen if you're schizophrenic. Any other schizophrenics out there? No, people won't admit it. I am. I'm admitting I'm on stage, God damn it. So I have schizophrenia. And it progresses. So it normally starts with sounds, kind of noises, mishmash, like speaking in tongues, to syllables, to disorganized syllables, to words, to phrases, to sentences, and then unfortunately to commands, which is where I am now in my life. And but with the mishmash of sounds, it really did sound like what I was hearing with me. And I was having a hard time with the voices, so I did what any other logical person would do. I said, these people look happy, and I'm not happy, and I'm joining the club. So when the altar call came, I went up, looked right at I'll never forget this. I looked right at the preacher, and I said, I remember his name was Randy, Preacher Randy. He was my preacher for years after that. I said, Preacher Randy, I want to join your club. And he said, well, do you believe that Jesus is your personal Lord and Savior? I'm like, sure. Can I join the club? And he's like, you're joining the club. I joined the club, and everybody was speaking in tongues. I think I was supposed to sit down, right? I'm 13 at this point. Like, okay. But I'm like, no, I'm going to do what they're doing, right? So I stand on a chair. I'm flair for dramatic, even when I was younger. I stand on a chair, and I'm like, well, I'm going to try to interpret the sounds I hear in my head, right? Because their voices were flying. So I stood up on a chair and started speaking in tongues. This was a crowd pleaser for the new convert to Jesus. The place got quiet, and I sat there and spoke it out loud. It was awesome. Later, some days later, I met with Preacher Randy to kind of go over what this whole Jesus thing was about, because I didn't know shit about it at all. So he was kind of explaining it to me. It was very confusing, blah, blah, blah. He said, look, I want to tell you, there was a woman in the crowd who had stomach cancer. And when you spoke in tongues, she said you healed her. I was like, okay. Not sure what to do with that as a 13-year-old, but I'm like, well, you're welcome to say. And then a couple months later, I had just turned 14, and now I was a sophomore in high school, or freshman in high school. A guy came to speak at the church. The church was sponsoring this missionary to Colombia, and he came to church to speak, and when he was there, he said, there's someone in the audience, such a great ploy, right? There's someone in the audience here that God sent me here to speak to. Are you that person? I was like, I think he's talking, I think he's talking about me, right? So I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm the person you're supposed to speak to. And so he gets some oil and anoints me with oil, and he says, I'm here to discern you. I don't know what the hell discernment meant, but he's got oil on me. It's kind of cool. I'm here to discern you. And he says, you have the gift of healing. Go and heal. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, how could he know that this other woman had healed? I was very naive. And then he, without knowing this, set up me to meet another guy who was coming through town from the Philippines. This guy was a faith healer in the Philippines, old dude. It's like in his 80s. And he set up an opportunity for me to be his apprentice in the Philippines, to be a faith healer. And my parents, for whatever reason, I guess me nagging them, convincing them, this point I was coming on 15, let me emancipate myself. I quit high school, and I moved to the Philippines, where I lived and was an apprentice to a faith healer. His wife homeschooled me. She did not do a very good job, by the way, but whatever. And I learned the Bible a lot. And I went to the Philippines, and that's a long intro to the little story, and this is what happened. I did a lot of street preaching, saving people. I actually kept track. I notched. How's that? Pretty cool, huh? Men are awesome. And I notched my people I saved from hell, mostly prostitutes. We're in a place called Olongapo, and Olongapo was a prostitute city. It's not there anymore, actually. It was completely destroyed by a volcano. Maybe there is a god. And it was a prostitute city for the fleet when it came in on R&R, and we were there not to convert the soldiers, of course. We were there to convert the women. And that's what I was doing. This thing about me healing hadn't come up yet, and I was kind of glad about that because it kind of threw me off, and I was very confused by it, and I didn't really like it. But there were still voices in my head. I was still having a hard time. I was still in the Philippines. I don't know what I was doing there. It was a very crazy time. And then one night, I'm preaching a place probably about half the size of this, hot as hell. It's 120 degrees or something in there. And I used to wear a suit, white silk suit with a little maroon tie. I looked great. And I was preaching. And it's funny, you said something in your story that reminded me of something I used to always write. I got a piece of chalk, and it was all cinder blocks, and I would write, many, many teko upsarin, which was ancient Hebrew for numbered, divided, and conquered. And I'd use that as a metaphor about you're numbered and conquered if you don't believe in Jesus kind of stuff. And that's what I was going to my thing, doing my preacher thing, and I was a kid, so people liked it. Right over there, right where those doors are, they opened, and there was a woman on a board, carried by 4 men. Nobody saw her, not yet. But I did, and I knew exactly why she was here. And she came forward, and they brought her down. They set her down and walked away. She's all crusty as hell, this crippled up lady, right? Isn't that the word they use in the Bible? Crippled, I love that word. And she's all crippled up, her legs were, and here I was. I'm 15, man, right? I'm very mentally ill. I'm 15 years old, and there's this crusted up lady in front of me. So I did, I'll show you what I did. I did the only thing, there she is, right? She's right here. Picture her. You got the crusty Philippine crippled lady there? Okay. The mind's eye is a powerful thing. And so there she is, and I look at her, and I do the only logical thing you would do. Which is I put my foot down, stepped over here, and cried, because I was scared to death. And I sat there, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried, because I was fucking scared to death, because it was 120 degrees, and I'm about to heal somebody, and I'm 15 years old. I'm supposed to be making out with chicks in the back of a car, not this. And I sat there. I didn't wear glasses at the time. And I'm crying. And I'm crying, and I look down, and I'm sweaty as hell, and there's tears all over, and they're cupped into my hand, right? There's some sweat and tears. Inspiration strikes. And I look at her, and I put my sweaty, teared hands on her knees, and I say, "You are healed!" And I stood back, and she stood up. And when she stood up, she didn't face me. She faces the crowd. Everybody does this, does the Jesus pose. I've healed a lot of people, and they tend to all do this. They do the Jesus pose, right? They should do it when he's born, not that's the negative day. That's the bad day. But if they do this. And she starts to sing a Filipino folk song, the only Tagalog I really know. And she sings. She goes, "Buhay, buhay, buhay, kalampamang. Sing enghunghai, buhay, buhay, kalampamang. Buhay, 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 kalampamang. Sing enghunghai, buhay, kalampamang. Buhay." Buhay, it means alive in Tagalog. Buhay. And the crowd starts going, "Buhay, buhay." And I was standing there in my silk suit, and I did the only thing really you could possibly think you would do in that situation. As I kneeled down and I threw up all over the stage. Thus endeth my first faith healing. Amen.
Stay there.
Yeah, we got to find out if that's true or not.
Taste of his own medicine here.
Thank you. Go get him, Chad.
All right. Charles, does your story have a name? Buhay.
Buhay. Thank you very much.
That. Yeah, why not? Yep, we'll go with
Buhay.
that. All right, audience.
Aha, my story's in Tagalog. Nobody else got that, so
Do we think Charles's story is true? All right, about halfway, maybe a little less. All right. Do we think it is false?
Okay.
Charles the False has it. The big reveal. Is your story true, fact or fiction?
It is true. I got you on that one. That's the opening chapter of my book, actually, which I'll be selling afterwards in the lobby. which is also
true. He will have copies.
Well, maybe I won't. I
library.
forgot, actually. No, I brought him. Yeah, I did bring him. No, the story is true. I wanted to do that one in this evening because it's such a audacious story that it's hard to believe that it's true. I had to pinch myself when I wrote it. Cool. Thank you.
Good work.
Wow, there you go. So, another plug. There it is. Opening chapter of this book right here. So that doesn't make it true, but it is. Just being published doesn't make anything true. Chad, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah.
Are you?
Feeling
You don't look like you know. You look like you're scared.
I'm a little sweaty.
You are. You have a story to tell. This is the
Sweaty.
first year of a festival. It's all on
It
you.
is. Yes.
Nobody, like, if it fails, and we don't know yet if it will, it's all on you, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
And you have a story. Have you ever done a story in public like this before?
Not that I can remember, but maybe I just blanked it out of my memory if I did.
This is a tough moment for you right now.
A little bit.
Where's your paper?
It's in my back pocket.
Come on.
It really
Don't
is.
use
yeah.
it, man. Don't use it.
I'm going to try and
just
keep
teasing.
it there, too, so, yeah. I've been looking at it backstage.
Most of the, just so people know, I've read, I've heard, I know most of this. I've obviously had a chance to hear most of these stories, and they're awesome. They're such a great mix. So, Chad, why don't you share your story with us? No pressure, but it's probably the best story I've ever read ever. So let's see how it goes. All right.
No pressure at all. I am not a farmer, which I realized when I had a showdown with an angry rooster. So about 2.5 years ago, my wife and I decided to raise chickens for the eggs, not for the meat. And everything's going on fine. They picked them up at the post office in a little box, and everything's good, and start laying eggs eventually. But after about a year, whether it was spring fever or puberty, back up. We got 9 hens and 1 rooster, which we named Pecker, because it's chicken. And there's a John Waters movie of the same name. It's really good. So 9 hens and 1 rooster named Pecker. So a year on, we noticed Pecker is getting a little aggressive with the ladies, or aggressively friendly, actually. Roosters like it rough, apparently. So yeah, that's fine. Whatever. But not too long after that, he started getting aggressive with my wife, though thankfully not in an amorous sort of way. But when roosters decide to attack something or someone, I don't know if you've seen it, they do this wrestling-style sort of drop kick, and they have spurs on the backs of their legs, and that's how they win cockfights. So he did this a couple of times to my wife when she would turn her back, and I did not defend her honor immediately. I thought it was kind of funny, actually, and he hadn't done it to me yet, so sorry, she's here. I'm sorry, Renee. Go along, and it's fine, whatever. So one day, I take some stuff out to one of the barns that we have on our property, and I come out, and I see Pecker across the yard, about 30 yards away or so, and he's staring at me, just looking. And so rather than cut diagonally across the yard, start to move sideways a little bit. And he's staring at me. He's just slowly moving. And I knew Pecker's coming for me. So I'm moving a little bit sideways. I try and do a long circle around the house, and he's gradually picking up his pace a little bit, coming a little closer, a little closer. And my response was not fight, but flight. I took off running through the yard, and that little bastard took off right after me, and he's chasing me across the yard, and I'm running. So top speed as fast as I can, because this chicken is chasing me. And he gets close, and he's getting closer, and he's closing the gap because he's faster than I am. And so I have this plastic cup in my hand, and he gets close enough so that I throw it at him, and he stops, and I just throw him off my trail just long enough so I could get inside the house. Safe for now. But a couple of days later, the same thing happened again, only he's chasing my wife and I around the yard. And we managed to get inside the house, and this is near sunset. And usually, when they're left on their own, chickens will return to their roost at night. But to our surprise, he abandoned his 9 ladies, and instead of going into the coop at night, he perched himself on top of the woodpile on our porch. And he's looking in the window at us. Just see him out there. Looking. Now you're in there. So we laughed. This is ridiculous, right? And we know it's ridiculous, and we're laughing about it. We're 2 adult humans. This is a 10-pound rooster. Come on. It's just fucking chicken. It's just silly. And, maybe we could put up with it or try and find some way to assert our dominance or something, but it's not just us. We have young nieces and nephews who come by the house sometimes, and the last thing that we wanted was for our rooster to attack these little kids. So that's when we made the call. It's him or us. It's Pecker or us. So I searched my heart and my manlyhood to see whether I could be the one to drop the axe, and I couldn't do it. We had these birds literally since they were a day old, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. Despite being an asshole, he's a beautiful bird. He's an Americana breed. Look him up. They have beautiful feathers and yeah. So I couldn't do it. So we put an ad on Craigslist, free rooster to a good home. And I didn't use his name because ad on Craigslist for free pecker. Yeah, probably wouldn't work. But we only got a couple of calls from people who just wanted to eat him. So that didn't work. And so there's a butcher south of here, and we decided to take him there. And so I had to figure out, though, how to catch him. So like Rocky training for Apollo, his fight against Apollo, like I'm chasing him around the yard a couple of times, and I wasn't able to catch him. So we had to wait until nighttime when they're roosting and they're super docile and you can pick them up and all that. So one night I picked him up, put him in a crate that we use to carry our cats around, and next morning I take him to the butcher, and that day there happened to be somebody else with a trailer full of about 2,000 chickens to be butchered, and here I show up with my one lonely rooster in my cat crate like, oh, can you please take him? Be gentle. So they take the crate, go inside, and I hear Pecker's last squawks through the window. Whole thing takes about 3 minutes, cost me $5. And the guy asks, when do you want to pick up the meat? And not only could I not kill him, just couldn't bring ourselves to eat him either. I mean, he's sort of family. So we said, you can just donate it to somebody in need. Who needs it? Donate it to somebody who needs it. So it was done. And so I've asked myself since then, if I had to do it again, would I do it differently? And I have mixed feelings about it, because even though I eat animals, I also love them. We have cats and a dog, and we have these other chickens, and I do love them. And I mean, it took me 2 weeks to spray this monstrous beehive outside our back door, because I just come on, just fly away. Don't make me do it. Come on. I did that eventually too, anyway. So on the one hand, I felt good that it wasn't my hand that ended Pecker's life. But on the other hand, I felt like I sort of failed as a man, as the alpha male of our homestead. Book of Genesis tells us man shall have dominion over his livestock, but I'm not a religious man, so and plus I'm surrounded by other men in our family who grew up on farms and have no problems killing other animals, whether it's by axe or gun. But I'm just I'm not to that point yet in my manhood. So if push comes to shove or drop kick comes to kill, I guess would I feel remorse, or would I feel like more of a man? I guess I will cross that yard when I come to it. Thank you.
Maybe we all in unison should just say Pecker. Everybody say 1, 2, 3.
Pecker.
Doesn't that feel good? All right, Chad. Pecker story. Give us clapping if you think the Pecker story's true. Ah. And give us a clap if you think the Pecker story is not true. Ah. So Chad, is the Pecker story true?
Indeed, it is true.
You didn't kill that. You didn't kill.
I did not kill Pecker. I did not kill my Pecker.
So I know I've read this story before, and so if I had hidden backstage an animal like a chicken in a cage, would you kill it for us, or do you feel like nah? I might. So.
Well, maybe if I was Ozzy Osbourne, I'd bite his head off or something, but I would not kill it. No, I'm not there yet.
You're not the killing type?
Not yet, maybe.
Not yet? I
guess.
Like that. Is this a goal you're working towards? You seem like a nice guy. You don't have to kill anything, man. It's all right.
Yeah.
How many people?
That's why I keep asking myself. I don't know until it happens.
Hey, real quick, before that chat, how many people have killed an animal? Holy mackerel.
Oh.
Wow. Good
Savages.
old Wausau animal
killers
killers.
In here.
Yeah, I'd be like, and they're only mammals. People have killed a mammal. All right, thank you very much, Chad. Wow. One of the reasons I like that story. One of the reasons I like that story is that it is like the insignificant to the significant, right? You can have a story from your life that, on the scheme of things is insignificant, right? In the sense that it doesn't really matter if he killed or not, but making it something bigger, like kind of at the end, where Ira Glass of Public Radio always says that the difference between like a public radio story and like a normal story is that our stories mean something in the end. They have to mean something. So I like that it has some bigger meaning. Plus it has the word pecker in it, which is funny. I forgot that was the guy's name in John Waters' movie, so I read your thing too. So that's excellent stuff. We have some other people to come up here. Let me see here. Oh, we're getting into the exciting stuff. Hey, James, are you here? Oh, no, we already did James. Darn it, I was going to end with you. I liked your story. Maybe we'll just have him do it again, but we'll think about that. There's some other people here, and you don't have to. Julie, do you want to do a story or not? You can do a thud. It's okay, no pressure. Julie. Oh, that worked, didn't it? Put her right on the spot. Come on up, Julie. You can jump up if you want. You don't have to. No one's jumped up yet. It's kind of disappointing. Let's give it up for Julie. Julie did not, about a half hour ago, or whenever ago when we started, Julie did not want to do a story. She hadn't planned to do a story. She wasn't going to do a story, and I guilted her into doing a story that she's going to do now. So that is very cool. So that is a very on-the-fly story. So Jill, take it away.
Okay, this is terrifying, actually. And without knowing it, I followed the first rule of, I've never written this story down, and so it's all coming out here. This is actually my husband's story. I tried to get him to come tonight and tell it, and he didn't want to. He grew up in the town of Bevent. People know Bevent. Charles. Bevent is a typical rural Wisconsin farming community about a half hour from here. There's a church, about 4 taverns, and about 5 times as many cows as there are people living in the township. And the story takes place on New Year's Eve, 1987. So we're about to flip the calendar to 1988. And my husband is a senior in high school. He has 2 older sisters, and they are gone for the evening at parties, and his parents are also gone to a party. So he and his best friend, party animals that they are planning to ring in the new year shooting pool in Paul's basement. So they're downstairs and they're shooting pool, and they come upstairs, and it's probably about 11:30 at night. And when you get to the top of the stairs, you're in the living room. And right away, they notice something's wrong because it's really cold in the living room. And so they look at the front door, and the front door is wide open. Now that's a little alarming that a front door to any house anywhere in Wisconsin would be standing wide open at 11:30 at night in December. But this was extra alarming because this was one of those front doors that was never used. Do you ever live in a house like that, or you know houses like that? There wasn't even a sidewalk that led to this front door. Everyone who came to this house, friends, family members, delivery people, the postman, they knew you don't go to the front door, you go to the back door. So the front door is wide open. Oh, and also this door is always locked, and there's only one key, and my father-in-law always had that key with him. And remember, he's at a party. So the guys see the doors open, they go to the door and they look, and they see one set of footprints in the snow, because again, the snow hasn't been shoveled, the door is never used. Oh, sorry, forgot one detail. It was snowing that night. So it was snowing as this was all happening. And there was a set of footprints coming into the house. So their blood runs cold. And this is a typical self-respecting rural Wisconsin home. There were firearms in this house. And Paul and Rick were typical self-respecting rural Wisconsin 17-year-old guys. They knew how to use them. So they headed right away for the stairway that led to the attic, which is where the rifles and the shotguns were held. They got down shotguns, they loaded them up, and they went through the house in a very kind of James Bond, CSI sort of manner, kicking open the door of every room, kind of like looking to see, who's here, going into doing the same thing with all the closets. Every room, the basement, where they had been previously, the attic. And then they go outside and they walk around the house, and they never find any footprints leading away from the house. There's only the one set coming into the house. Well, they've ascertained that there's nobody else in the house other than them. So, they put their weapons away, they leave all the lights on, they turn on Dick Clark really loud in the living room, and about midnight, my in-laws get home, they tell them what happened. My father-in-law kind of did the same thing. I don't think he had a gun with him, but checked everywhere. No one was there, no more footprints. Next morning, he asked his sisters, do you guys have any idea who this might have been or what might have happened? They had no idea. And the mystery of the New Year's Eve visitor was never solved.
Isn't that the moment you're supposed to bring your hand up on the campfire to everybody and scare us? Isn't that
Yeah.
what I mean? It's never solved until now! And then she kills us all. So I want to make a comment before you see if that's true or false or not, which is, you've told that story before, right?
A couple times. Mostly I've heard my husband tell it.
What's interesting, if you don't mind being editorial for a moment here, what's interesting about listening to that story, so this is someone this is one, it didn't happen to you, wasn't prepared to tell the story tonight. Did you see the way she moved her body and the way she told the story? Do you know what I mean? We all know how to tell stories, right? That was entertaining, right? You forgot that it was snowing. I don't know. Did anybody care? I don't care. You went back and said, who cares? You know what I mean? We're not, it was fine, right? The point is, even the way you moved your body, the way it got more hushed when we know how to tell stories if we let ourselves tell them spontaneously. I don't know, it's a compliment, but also just a comment that anybody here can do that. Real quick, let's see if it's true or not, but remember what I just said, because I'm going to bring that up again. So first, do we think that story's true? So meaning they think it's true. We don't have to say if there were ghosts or not, or a killer who might still be there with a choking Doberman in the basement, right? And who thinks it's not true? Is it true?
It is true.
It is true.
Yeah.
It could have been either. That could have been either way. The way it was told, I think that could be either way. It could be a true or not true story. I like that.
Yeah. I probably gave it away when I told you I'd told it before.
No. But
that I heard him tell it.
Right. That could have been.
'Cause he's the most honest guy in the world. He could never make us.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that is an excellent introduction to the next thing that I want to say. Here, I'm gonna go out here. The next thing I want to say. Hey, you guys want to learn an audio trick? Real quick before I tell you that? You point the microphone to your chin, not your mouth. How's that? See, and then take a step. Then take a step back. It's this. See the distance? Yeah. I learned that in radio school. See, this doesn't sound good. The point is that she didn't want to tell this. She didn't have a story tonight when she got here, and she told the story. I thought the story was good, actually. That's an intro to something, isn't it? Can you guess what it is? Can you guess what it is? Who's got a story? Who wants to tell a story now? Look at that! Oh my God! 5 hands went up. Ladies, I had dinner with tonight, and none of you raised your goddamn hand. You're telling a story we all talked about. They got a free dinner. A free dinner. They owe us a story. So we do have people. Oh, look at that. Peer pressure. Drink. No, that's fine. No. Wait a minute. Raise your hand. I need to hand a little bit higher so I can remember. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Okay, I got 4 stories. That's good. Is that a good amount? Is that too much? No, forget it. We're out of time. Go to home. No, we got time? Let's do the 4 stories. We will start with you because I asked you to do a story. So come on up. And then you are next because you look like my grandma. And then you two in the back. Are you telling a story together or are you each telling a separate story? Separate story. Do I know you? I feel like I know you. Do you sell weed in Madison? I'm sorry, he just looks like a drug dealer. I hope your parents aren't here. Doesn't he look like a drug dealer? Not a hardcore, not meth or anything, just says weed, right? Nothing bad. Come on up. Introduce yourself and tell us a story. Hey, don't worry about showing that. Don't show the tattoo.
Great. My name is Molly. I'm a freshman here at Marathon County. Jill Stukenberg is my creative writing teacher, which is why I was at the dinner tonight, and that's why I was talked into coming up here. So when I turned 18, I decided I wanted to get a tattoo. And when I told this to my parents, they were very concerned. They were coming up with things like, but what if they make a mistake? That mistake is on the body for the rest of your life. You could regret it. It could not come out the way you want it. Whatever. But I was not deterred. I was pretty determined to get that tattoo because it's just something I always thought about. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the one that's on my leg. It takes up the entirety of my thigh. It is a very sketched-looking owl, a barn owl, and in its eyes there are blues, shades of blue, and stars. And behind the owl's head is like a galactic solar system-looking design. And amongst that solar system-looking design is the constellation for my zodiac. I'm a Virgo, so that constellation is included in there as well. And that one took me about 3 different sessions, each of those sessions 2.5 to 3 hours long, and cost me probably a grand total of $700. Now, my parents look at something like that and say, why would you spend so much money to go sit in a chair for 7 hours and get stabbed by needles? Well, beats me. The story behind that one kind of belongs more to my desire, like my love for animals. Meanings behind tattoos, they can run deep, or they can just be, you like tattoos, you like animals. And that's kind of the story behind that one. There's an owl that I saw on the internet a few weeks prior to getting the tattoo, and his name was Zeus. And this owl was completely blind. But in his eyes, like the condition that he had, because he was blind, his eyes were not, like he didn't have pupils, didn't have whites of his eyes. It just looks like galaxies. It's different shades of blue, and there are stars in his eyes. And I just thought that looked incredible. So I decided to start there because I love animals. Why not? And after that, I decided I had not had enough getting tattoos. So just turning 19, in the age of 18, I got 3 different tattoos, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. The next one is on my shoulder here. It is a crescent moon. It has a floral centerpiece and a bunch of stuff dragging off of it. You can barely see it, but it looks like a moon. And that one I got with my older sister. She bought that one for me, like as a Christmas birthday gift combination thing, since I turned 18, and she had already had tattoos. So she decided to break me in, I guess. And on her tattoo, it says, "You see my light," because she has the similar tattoo in the same spot, except hers is the sun. So she has the sun, I have the moon. Hers says, "You see my light," and mine says, "You love my dark." Like they're much like me and my sister. They're similar objects, but they're very different tattoos because we are 2 very, very different people. Other than blood, you would not be able to tell that we were related, which we get a lot. And then lastly, on my arm, I have a simple little signature. Lots of love, Grandma. My grandma, she's not dead yet, don't worry, but she signs every single birthday and Christmas card, "Lots of love, Grandma," in her cursive handwriting. It always looks gorgeous. And it's just something that I don't want to forget. Like, I will still have the cards, but now on my arm is something that it's even harder to forget. Even if it fades or even if it starts to like drain out a little bit, it is just a reminder of something for my grandma who means a lot to me. And when I first showed it to my grandma, when I first told my grandma I was getting a tattoo, of course, back in the generations, it was not exactly okay for everybody. It wasn't normal to go out and see a tattoo on everybody. It was on people who were considered rebellious or whatever. So they weren't exactly in tune with the idea. But I went out, I just told my grandma I was getting a tattoo. So I went out, got some tattoos, and I showed her this tattoo. I go to her house one day, And I roll up my sleeve, and it's her signature. And she just pauses for a second, looks at me, and says, "That's actually really cool," which was a big breakthrough in grandparent history, might I just say. So I guess the point I'm trying to get at is, yes, tattoos are permanent, but maybe that isn't always a bad thing.
That was awesome. Look at that. No, we know that's true, of course, so we can skip the vote. But I will ask you, would you recommend, I mean, are there other grandparents in the room, real quick? Oh, a lot of grandparents in the room. Any of you guys have tattoos? Go get them, Grandma. Any other grandmas have tattoos? Maybe you guys could get tattoos. You get tattoos of your grandkids' names, right?
Of my grandkids' names?
No, them. Them.
Oh.
You gotta wait, dog.
That's where
No,
my
maybe you guys get
confusion was.
tattoos. I think that is absolutely. I heard that story at dinner today. It's such a great story, told the same way you'd hear it around eating a burger at a story. It has such great meaning. I think it has great meaning, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Dang, top that. Good luck. You guys still want to do the story? I get it. If you don't want to do a story after that. You got one? All right, cool. As you're walking down, I will say it was nice to have another reminder of another reason why there are stories, right? You know, to be a part of the common story, right? It's not just for entertainment. That's important. Watch out, grab all of that. That thing it's the coolest stairwell I've ever heard. So what is your name?
My name? Okay, get ready. Marin.
Marin? I can do that. Okay, Marin, come on and have a stand. Have a seat. So I want to say there's no seat. Crazy. Marin, what do you do? What do you do in this fair world?
I am just your typical college student, local, but didn't used to be so local. So.
And what do you study?
I'm afraid to say because it changes just about every
Marin,
semester.
what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to do with this money? Me and your father spent on this thing. What are you going to do?
Ultimately, I'm going to be a mother.
Ultimately, a mother.
Yes.
Well, excellent. Mothers need to be
better.
very well educated. It's a hard job. All right, why don't you tell us your story?
Okay, so first of all, this is going to be a little bit funny, but thank you for telling your story. It was very moving, and I don't want to... Okay, anyway, sorry. Just thought I had to say something. Okay, so this story comes in 3 parts. It's going to involve a washer machine, a gun, and a Beauty and the Beast story. So the first part of the story is, this is my 2nd semester in Platteville, which I studied media studies, of all things, for the first semester until I realized that I didn't want to be in, it's a stressful environment, to say the least. So I was in my 2nd semester. It was 2 weeks before spring break. I was just doing my laundry. I went down to the basement where all the laundry machines are in Brockert Hall. And if any of you know anything about Platteville, I think it's roughly 1 female to 3 males. At Platteville, it's mostly male dominant, and most of them are engineers. So it's just like you look around, there's just a bunch of ugly guys around, and you're just like, how am I supposed to meet a man here? So I was going down to the laundry room, and one guy is walking out, and I go in, I try to figure out which washer machine he used so I wouldn't use it. And oh my gosh, there's so much hair in the gaskets. So every time I go in to do my laundry, I go in and I reach out and I pick out all of the hair, or whatever is in there. And I looked into this one, and there's something white, and I thought it was just, laundry detergent. So I go in to pick it up, and I can't pick it up. It's too slimy. And then I raise it up, and I see something that I hoped that I wouldn't see until I was married. And it's a used condom with old male ejaculate all over it. So I walk myself with this white stuff on my hand to the bathroom, and I try and find the janitor after I wash it off. I was just horrified for the rest of the day. I never did my laundry in Brockert Hall from that day forward. And actually what was really weird was my mom, my grandma, and my great aunt Jane were coming to visit that day. And I told them about it in the back of the car because I was just, and they're just all like, oh, that wasn't cum that you touched. And I was just like, no, it was. And my great Aunt Jane turns to me with a smile on her face and she asks, did you taste it? I was never more speechless in my entire life. So the next week, actually, it was sort of that event and just being fed up with my roommate that I went and I spent the week before spring break at my brother's friend's house. I just sort of slept on the futon. That's actually something that a lot of people I knew in Platteville did, is they hated the dorms so much they just had to get out. So I spent a week there. I did my laundry there. They were grateful enough to let me do that. Actually, I think I might have broke their dryer. But also it was just really crappy. And actually, it was sometime during that week. There was a lot of midterms because it's right before spring break. There's either midterms before or after spring break. And I'm just sitting in my photography class with a professor that I just cannot stand. And all of a sudden, there's sirens that go on. And there's like a speaker that comes on, and it's really crappy. You can barely hear it. And it says, there's been a gun sighting on campus. Everybody should evacuate campus. So there's just this mass exodus of people that just leave campus. And I go back to the place that I've been staying at, a little scared. There was a gun on campus. The year before in high school, there'd just been like every week there was a new school shooting going on. And I was like, crap, I'm going to be a part of that statistic now. And we all just decide, like, my brother stands up and he's just like, guys, this house is a mess. Let's clean it up. So the day that we had to evacuate campus, we clean up the house. And later on, we hear that it was this kid who was in the male bathroom. He goes into the bathroom before class, and he looks down in the stall next to him, and he sees what he thinks is a barrel of an AK-47. And we all kind of, like, when we heard that, we were just like, what else looks like a barrel of an AK-47 in a male bathroom? So we were all kind of suspicious about that, but I was a little shook up, and I was just grateful to have the day off, but also grateful that nothing happened. And so I'm still iffy on the idea, because actually one of my classmates found a bullet on the ground, and it wasn't sure if it belonged to the gunman or if it belonged to a cop, because there was cops everywhere on campus. I don't know if it got ever resolved, but that was one crazy thing that happened before a whole world of craziness. So I went home from spring break. I was really excited because, I've been a part of this. I've been going to church like all my life, like a good little kid, and compared to some other people, I actually enjoyed it. Except there was this one guy that stands out every day at church. And it wasn't until, high school that he kind of noticed me too. It kind of became a pain in my ass. Like every time I went to church, because, after church, he'd look at me and he'd just stare at me, and he'd like come in and he'd like hang out and talk to me and stuff. And that Sunday he asked me like, hey, you're really good at photography. Could we maybe go and take some photos? There's a photo that I need for the forum. It's this newspaper at the college that I go to. And I'm writing a story and I need a photo. And I was just like, he got me. Finally made me fall and just like, okay, I'll go take some photos with you because like I'm a huge amateur photographer. And it's just like, I can put up with you for one night, but I'm bringing my friend because you creep me out. So we go there, and we take some photos, and it's actually really cool. He's like all cool and classy, and he like goes and by the stairwell, and he looks like all. And he's just, it's like really weird. And then we go and we talk, like, we talk on the dock, and like it's like pitch black, so I don't have to see his scraggly ginger beard and like be like, oh my God, you like totally are into me, but I'm totally not into you. And it's pitch black, and I don't see his face, and then he just spews like part of his life story, and it's like the sap story, and it really catches me. And for the first time, instead of being the creep in the corner of church, he became a real person to me. So that was the first time that I fell in love with him as a person. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this was a great night. Let's do this again. I want to take photos with you again. It just happened the next Sunday was Easter Sunday. His parents, his dad doesn't go to church. His mom was in New York, and his brother was in college. So it's just him. And he shows up in church in this black leather jacket and sits all alone. And, you know, this is a guy who unironically plays D&D, among other things. And he shows up in a leather jacket, and it kind of scares me a little bit because he's so out of character. But I go with him anyway, and he's really quiet and kind of sad looking, but I think he's just trying to look cool. And we end up taking photos on the Mosinee Dam. And he's sitting up against the wall, and me and my mentor just like, he was a really great model. He wasn't all like, you know, overly dramatic as like he normally is. And it was in that moment where he's sitting up against the wall, and I have my camera, and it's pointed at him, and he's fixing his hair, and he turns to me, and he swoops it back, and I click the shutter. And it was in that moment, through the lens of a camera, that I fell in love. And we're getting married next year. So that's the story of how the most unexpected person I fell in love with. So yeah.
Thank you very much. We are running out of time, unfortunately, or fortunately, which means we filled the time. Depends how you look at it. And I'm going to have you guys again stand up and stretch for a moment, because what we're going to do next. Can you explain to them how we're going to do this next part?
Okay, so you all received note cards when you came in. Probably shouldn't put these two mics together. We have a lovely little gift bag for someone. So you have on your little notepads, hopefully you have something to write on them for your favorite. I just took Karen's, so she doesn't have one, but I will get it back to her. So we had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
You can vote for yourself.
Oh, they're all up here. Yes, okay.
Look how organized that is.
Sure, pass them around. Just one. Oh no, I grabbed mine from Karen. Oh, you have Karen's too? We have both of Karen's here. Okay, so just write down on your note card the letter of your favorite story. We do have a gift bag for the winner. Some lovely items kindly donated by Wisconsin Public Radio, Barnes & Noble, and Yankee Bookstore. So the winner gets some free swag for their efforts.
You guys, everybody gets what you're doing? What? Go ahead. What?
So yeah, while we're doing that as well, while we're waiting to collect the results, just want to say thank you. We weren't really sure how this evening was going to go.
It was good.
And I don't know about you guys, but I've had a great time tonight, and these have been some lovely stories, and I'm not promoting myself or anything like that, but these have been some great stories, a really nice mix, and we're glad to have some audience participation as well. So if the rest of the Central Wisconsin Book Festival goes as well as things did tonight, I will be a happy guy. So thank you, and thank you to those who shared your stories, and thank you for coming. Wonderful.
So you guys having fun? Good. I'm trying to find something here. I'm looking for something here. I don't know if I'll find it. When I was a young man, when I lived in Amsterdam, I had a dream job, and I wanted to be one of the hawkers, in front of clubs, strip clubs and stuff, who would like dress up and convince people to come in. Hey, come on over. I'm thinking that'd be a cool way to do this. What's your vote there? What's your vote? Come here, kid. Bring your friends. I always thought it'd be a fun job. I was probably wrong. Silent. I'm one of those fill in the space people with silence. I'm sorry. I should let everybody sit here for a minute. I want to read you something, but I can't find it. But when I do, I'll read it to you because it's yes, sir, it is always the way. Says the guy in the surreal frog story, which I loved. It seems, I think most of us, Christian or not, or whatever you are or not, or used to be, that one of the things, I used to be a Christian, obviously. I was a faith healer. That was pretty good to get more Jesus than that. I'm not a Christian any longer, but when I wrote my book, which is a memoir, and I found that I hadn't thrown the baby out with the bathwater. I certainly thought I had thrown the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just killing time here because I'm trying to find you to read something. And I thought I had thrown the baby out with the bathwater. I was very happy to find out that I had not thrown the baby out with the bathwater. And one of the things I realized I'd kept, when you write a book, a number of you have written books, right? You guys have written books, right? It's kind of fun. It's pretty exciting. And you get a little word count thing at the end, and then you can't resist. You're like, well, I wonder which word I use the most. How many times did I say the F word? I'm like, oh, wow, I said the F word 23 times. That's too many times. Like, just really curious, of how, how I did that. I can't seem to find it. But, and I was looking for words I'd use, and I swore a lot. I'm like, oh, maybe I swore too much, and blah, blah, blah. But I can't find it. But I was surprised of one of the words I used 6 times in the book. And the word was grace. And each time I capitalized it. And I was like, he's great. Now, a couple of the graces made sense, right? The first third of the book's called the Jesus years. You got some Jesus, you got some grace. You're going to talk about grace. That was cool, but they were equally spaced out throughout the book. During the drug times and the crazy times, I used the word grace. Like, why in the hell? So I went back and just read each paragraph that had the word grace in it. And I was going to read you my resolution through, but I'm sure I can remember because I wrote the book. Right? And what I came to, and I think maybe we experienced some of this tonight, that this grace, this undeserved love, right, is something that we give and take often in our lives. And what I realized that there were moments of grace in my life, received grace, not the grace that I gave. All the 6 grace moments were moments where I received grace. And the moments of grace I received at the time were small. They seemed small. But I think they all made it into the book because each one turned me on the path, right? And they were significant in retrospect, which I'm sure we all find out as we get older. Some things in retrospect are more meaningful than others. And I was surprised that through my stories that I would use such a word. The way I wrote my book was very simple. I would go to bars, Woody and Ann's, great bar, Eastside Madison. I'd go to Woody Ann's and I would put a tape recorder on myself and sit there with my equipment for radio. And I would say, hey, I'll buy you 2 a drink if you listen to me tell a story. And they're like, sure, who wants a free drink? I tell them a couple stories. And then I go home and I transcribe the stories and I edit them, and that's how I wrote the book. And even with the people in the bars, I went back to the transcriptions and to the audio, I talked about grace. In my stories, that my stories were these acts of grace. And so I think that as I received the grace and I read each time and realized, wow, that's something going on here. That I also realized that when you tell your story or that you all did tonight, that is also an act of grace. You contributed to an act of grace. It was clear. That when you share your own story, you share, it is grace. You're giving someone undeserved love, and you receive that back. Those who told the story, you're bigger now than you were when you walked in the door. It's just true. Atheist or not. It's grace. So I wanted to share, sorry I'd be so deep, but it just caught me again that we're, the giving and taking of our stories tonight is an act of grace. It's important. Take it seriously. Chicken pecker or not, these are important things to share, stories of grace. So that was my little, that was my little serious thing. I felt that was real. I'm assuming we have a count, unless you want to meet. You come out? Everybody's so formal. I love the Midwest. Come.
Okay.
Come.
So I'm going to announce the winner of our vote, but also I just want to remind you that Charles does have copies of his book that he have for sale and for autograph afterwards.
I can autograph it.
Right, like $20.
$20.
Yep. Okay. And I will help direct the line if so. Anyway, we just really appreciate you coming
in the mob
tonight.
scene, if there's
in the
violence
mob
to wait
scene.
in line, we'll relax. You're from the Midwest, Norwegian
Yeah.
roots, chill.
Can we have just a round of applause for Charles? Thank you. And then our winners, the crowd favorite tonight of the story is Close Encounters at St. Louis. Jerry Buer, hi.
Way to go.
Way to go.
I say that's a lesson in props. He had 2 props. Good job, Jerry, and a props, dude.
My family is divided. Some consider me a storyteller, but the majority just consider me a BSer.
Can I say something just between me and you? Everybody else don't listen. It's the same thing, man. It is the same thing. So that's it, right? What about second place? No? No, I'm just teasing. There's no second place in life. Hey, do you want to say goodbye? Well, I'm going to thank Chad because you guys, nothing happens unless somebody organizes it. Somebody's got to get off their butt, make the decision, work hard to make it happen. They're called producers, and he produced this and everything that's happening this weekend. So that's what he did. And that's it. That's very important. So go on, tell more stories. Do this again next year. Do it in your living rooms. Tell stories. Bless you.